Hi, everyone. Okay, so I'm a Peabody grad, and part of being a Peabody grad means that you get the Peabody magazine, which makes you feel pretty good about yourself because you're affiliated at least with all these people who are doing all these amazing things all over the world. And so recently, I got the latest issue of the Peabody magazine, and this page in particular I thought was kind of interesting. It listed performances by Peabody alums and faculty and students in New York City and Washington, D.C. And on the bottom was a website that you could go to and check it out online, so I did that. Checked out who was doing what, where they were doing it, why they were doing it. And then just as an experiment, I replaced NYC and Washington in the URL with Baltimore, which yielded nothing. So this is a problem. I think it's a problem because it sends a message that Baltimore is a place that you can't achieve success as a musician, or even like if you're doing something musically innovative, that it doesn't count. That what's happening in Baltimore doesn't have the same weight or credibility as what's going on in Washington, D.C. or New York City. Anyway, I'm not here to get down on Peabody, but because I went there and I love Peabody. But I'd like to think that a musical institution that lives in Baltimore would be interested in promoting the vibrant musical culture that exists in Baltimore. But of course, this is coming from someone who believes that Baltimore can be, should be, and actually is an important place for musical innovation. So about 2 years ago, there was an article in The Guardian about the booming music scene in Brooklyn, New York, which talked about the role Baltimore had played in the borough's so-called musical renaissance. And I thought it was cool for Baltimore to be recognized for its, quote, curveball creativity. But I was honestly more than a little offended by the notion that Baltimore was just serving as Brooklyn's farm team, kind of a musical stepping stone, and that a hip and innovative musical culture couldn't throw down roots and thrive here. But that article was published almost 2 years ago, and there have been people who are defying the stereotype that you need to live in a dingy Brooklyn apartment to have success outside of Charm City. But in my musical ghetto, I mean niche, which has been dubbed several things for better or worse, including new music, post-classical, alt-classical, indie classical, non-pop, unpop, contemporary classical, modern classical, avant-classical, totalist, new music with no space between the words, and new music with a hyphen, to name just a few. New York City's reputation as the center of the universe still prevails with the media and musicians. I mean, I guess there's a reason why. But there is a lot of cool stuff going on in New York, and I'm not knocking their innovation. But what I'm saying is that New York City isn't the only place where cool things can happen. And I think Baltimore, with its strong do-it-yourself ethos and overwhelming sense of community within and across artistic disciplines, is well suited to define this kind of new hybrid culture we're working towards. So obviously, you can tell that I'm a fan of Baltimore. That's right. Seriously, no, like that Live Baltimore organization should totally have me on its payroll, because rarely do I miss a chance to extol the city's virtues to people who know next to nothing about Baltimore. And actually, that's something I want to explore very briefly, is that what do people think about when they think about Baltimore? Well, here are a few things. The Orioles, crabs, shit-eating drag queens, and I heard it over here, The Wire. Yes, The Wire. Oh, indeed. And musically speaking, it's been the quote-unquote crazies who've defined the city to a large extent to a bigger audience, and I like that. That's cool. But musically speaking, that's cool that they're doing that, and I like that there's an irreverent, quirky music community. It means that there's a very strong voice for Baltimore, musical voice. But I'm saying that I think we can kind of turn the page on that a little bit. I mean, let's have it. Let's embrace it. Because the flip side involves the outside perception of what Baltimore values musically and what it's all about. I mean, if I'm an outsider looking in and I see all this quirky, irreverent stuff, it's sending a strong message to me that's like, hey, yeah, we're crazy, but don't take us too seriously, because in general, that's what people have been talking about. I'm down with that, but what I'm saying is that that's not all we have to offer, and there are things that can be done and should be done and need to be done to start changing perceptions. But everyone's got to get on board, because there are some people in town who have the ability to affect this kind of change on a broader level, but for whatever reason, and happen to be some of Baltimore's biggest media darlings, but they continue to work outside of Baltimore and don't seem to be all that interested in collaborating within the city and making the city a better place musically. But anyway, that's what I'm about. That's what I'm trying to do. Thank you very much.